watch people run toward trends. I watch them, that's the difference. Not rejection, not rebellion, just observation. Like standing at the edge of a crowd, watching where everyone moves. First 1%, and 10, then 100. Soon the entire room faces the same direction. Excited, curious, convinced this moment matters. Working and planning, you learn to see it early. The signal's the first post, it's the first excitement. The moment something begins to spread, you notice patterns. How curiosity becomes attention, how attention becomes momentum, how momentum becomes hype. It's fascinating, human behavior moving like weather, but the fascination doesn't always lead to participation. Because when the wave finally reaches everyone, something strange happens. My interest fades, the louder the crowd, the quieter my curiosity becomes. Not because the thing itself changed, but because discovery disappeared, and discovery is the only part that truly excites me. A quiet cafe before the article writes about it, a song before the playlist pushes it everywhere, placed before the line phones outside. Those moments feel personal, like a conversation between you and something the world hasn't noticed yet. But trends turn conversations into announcements. Everyone's saying you have to try this, you have to see this, you have to know this. And suddenly the experience is no longer yours, it belongs to the timeline. Friends ask, why are you like this? Why don't you just enjoy what everyone enjoys? Maybe they're right, oh, maybe I complicate simple things, but something about shared excitement feels borrowed, like enthusiasm that arrived before curiosity. And curiosity needs space to ask, do I like this or do I just recognize it? Those are different questions. Recognition belongs to trends, interest belongs to the individuals. That difference changes everything, because when curiosity is genuine, you don't need a crowd, you don't need confirmation, you don't need momentum, just attention, a moment, a small discovery that feels like it belongs to you. Not the algorithm, the timeline, just your own curiosity. That's why I keep watching, observing, studying the rhythm of attention, the way excitement moves, the way trends rise, spread, fade, a tone of music, all a pattern, a beat, a predictable loop. And maybe that's why standing outside the way feels comfortable, because observation is quieter, and quiet curiosity often reveals more interesting things than the trend itself. So while everyone runs toward the next moment, I'm still standing, watching, learning, waiting for the one thing that doesn't need a crowd to be interesting.
There's something wrong with my taste, at least that's what people say. Everyone gets excited about the same thing, and somehow I'm the one standing outside the line, not complaining, not criticizing, just not interested. The moment something becomes too popular, my curiosity fades like a light switching off. It's not rebellion, not some grand statement, just a strange reflex when everyone runs in one direction. My feet slow down and suddenly the opposite direction looks interesting. Maybe I'm allergic to trends, not because they're meaningless, but because they move too quickly. Or for real curiosity, 1 week everyone is talking about the same drink, the same place, the same food, the same brand, photos everywhere, recommendations everywhere. Everyone's saying you have to try it, and maybe they're right, maybe it's great, but the louder the excitement becomes, the more distant the experience feels. Like the joy already belongs to someone else, borrowed enthusiasm instead of discovery. That's what I like, the quiet moment when you find something before it becomes obvious. A song with barely any listeners, a cafe with no waiting line, a book no one recommended. Those small discoveries feel personal, like finding a secret that belongs to you alone. Working in planning, I understand trends, I study them, track them, analyze them, every shift, every pattern, every way, cause that's how the job works. You have to see where attention goes before everyone else. But understanding trends and following them are completely different things. Observation is curiosity, everyone tried it. Maybe that's exactly why when a crowd moves together, something inside me asks a question: do I actually want this, or do I just want to belong? That question changes everything, because belonging can be expensive, not money, identity. You slowly trade your curiosity for approval. You stop asking what you like and start asking what everyone likes. That's the moment when trends become rules, and rules have never been my favorite thing. So I keep watching, not rejecting, not protesting, just choosing carefully. Sometimes that means I try things later, when the noise fades, when excitement becomes quieter, when curiosity returns. Because the truth is, I don't hate trends, I just prefer to meet them on my own time, without pressure, without expectation, without the invisible rule that says you should like this right now. Maybe that makes me a little difficult, a little stubborn, a little strange, but strangely it also makes things more interesting. Because I finally discover something when curiosity wins over hesitation. The experience feels real, not borrowed, not copied, just mine. Somehow, small makes everything. I've been thinking maybe rebellion is quieter than people imagine. Not loud, not dramatic, not standing on a table shouting. Sometimes rebellion is just saying no thanks. Everyone else runs towards something exciting, certain, ready. Phones out, opinions ready. Everyone agreeing this is the next thing, the next taste, the next moment. And I'm there watching, thinking, do I actually want this, or do I just want to belong? That question changed everything, because belonging is easy. You just follow the conversation, repeat the excitement, post the same photos, and in the same line. But curiosity is harder. Curiosity asks, what if I wait? What if I win? What if I decide later? Working and planning, I learn something about trends. They're almost mechanical. Someone posts, someone reacts. The algorithm notices suddenly. Everyone agrees, but agreement doesn't always mean understanding. Sometimes it just means momentum, and momentum can carry people further than curiosity. That's why I hesitate, I'm making them raise, not fighting them, just pausing long enough. Thousands, and strangely that pause feels rebellious in a world that constantly says hurry, decide now, try this now, care about this right now. But curiosity doesn't like urgency, it likes silent space. Time to wander, to notice, to question why something matters, instead of simply accepting that it does. Friends laugh, you think too much, maybe I do, but thinking creates freedom. Freedom to like something later or never. Freedom to explore outside the wave. Freedom to miss things without. Because the truth is, not everything needs to be experienced, not every trend needs to be followed, not every moment needs to be shared. Some things are better discovered quietly, without announcement, without expectation, just curiosity meeting something, choosing the right moment. Maybe that's my strange habit, watching the crowd but choosing a slightly different path. Not louder, not better, just mine, a quiet code hidden inside. Curiosity that says you don't have to follow every signal. Sometimes standing still is enough to hear something the crowd missed. And strangely, that small discovery feels bigger than the trend ever did.
Sometimes I feel like my taste lives in a parallel world the same. Trends exist, they're the same headlines and the same excitement, but somehow I'm always standing a few steps to the side, watching everyone else discover something. At the same time, the same cafe, the same fashion, the same food, the same playlist. And the excitement moves quickly like electricity through the crowd, everyone agreeing this is it. This is the thing, this is what matters right now. And maybe they're right, maybe it's good, but the louder the agreement becomes, the quieter my curiosity feels. Not disappearing, just waiting like a conversation that hasn't started yet. Working in planning, you begin to notice patterns. Attention moves in waves, one person then 10,000. Soon the entire internet moves together, but waves are temporary. They rise, they crash, they disappear. And when they disappear, something if I distant happens, the quiet returns. And in that quiet curiosity wakes up the gate. Now the same thing feels different because the pressure is gone. No one is telling you you have to try this, you have to like this, you have to care. Now you can decide on your own. Friends sometimes ask, why are you like this? Why not just enjoy what everyone enjoys? Maybe I could, maybe life would be simpler. But something about forced enthusiasm feels uncomfortable, like wearing clothes that don't belong to you. Popularity and interest are not the same thing. Popularity belongs to the crowd, interest belongs to curiosity. And curiosity doesn't move in straight lines. Sometimes it arrives early eyes, sometimes it arrives late eyes, sometimes it arrives after everyone else has already left. That's when I notice the details, the flavor, the music, the idea, without the noise, without the pressure, just the experience. And strangely that moment feels more honest because it's mine. Not the algorithms, not the timelines, just curiosity taking its time. Walking a path, slightly different. I need a pet, my dog, my crab. Baby, black dog, dog, my crab. Da 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 da. Maybe that's why my taste feels parallel, not opposite, not rebellious, just slightly out of sync with the rhythm of everyone else. And honestly that rhythm feels comfortable because the goal was never to disagree. The goal was always to understand what actually feels like mine.
Yeah, I'm always late to the hype, not accidentally, almost intentionally. The moment something becomes used, my curiosity quietly leaves. It's not hatred, not rejection, just a strange instinct like hearing a song. Too many times before you even press play, everyone is talking, everyone is posting, everyone says you have to try this, you have to see this, you have to know this. And suddenly the experience feels crowded, like the moment already happened before I arrive. Working and planning, I understand how hype works. It's predictable, a spark appears. Someone influential notices it, the algorithm pushes it. Soon, everyone is repeating the same excitement. Momentum grows, the wave rises, and suddenly a trend exists. But trends have a strange side effect. They remove discovery. Discovery is quiet, personal, unexpected. You find something before the world decides it matters. A small cafe, an unknown artist, a random idea that suddenly feels interesting. But turn discovery into obligation. Now it's not you found this. Now, yeah, everyone found this at the same time, and something about that feels less exciting. Friends say you're missing now. Maybe I am, that the excitement belongs only to you. Maybe that's why I'm always to you. When I'm up here, it's because I'm waiting for curiosity to return. After the noise, after the wave, after the crowd leaves and strangely that quiet moment is usually the most interesting part, because now the experience is finally mine, not the trends, just curiosity. If I went a little late, but exactly on time.
Sometimes it feels like everyone else is swimming with the current, moving together fast, confident, certain about where they're going. And I'm the one standing still looking at the water, thinking, do I actually wanna go there? Or is it just where the river flows? It's strange how powerful momentum can be. One person says something is good, another agrees. Soon everyone believes it must be true. Restaurants fill, songs repeat, products disappear from shelves. Popularity moves quickly like water, but curiosity moves slower. Curiosity doesn't rush, it pauses, observes, asks questions. Why do people suddenly love this? Is it actually good or just visible? Working and planning, you learn to watch patterns. Trends aren't random, they follow signals. A new product, a viral post, an influencer's opinion. Small sparks turning into waves for understanding that is useful, but understanding also reveals something uncomfortable. How easily people move together, how quickly agreement forms, how rarely someone stops to ask, do I really want this? That question feels simple, but it's powerful, because the answer sometimes, 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 sometimes. Imagine no attachments, no trending page, no recommendations, just you and the thing in front of you. Would you still care about it if the answer is yes and the interest is real? If the answer is uncertain, maybe the trend was louder than your curiosity. That realization made me slow down, not rejecting trends, not resisting them, just refusing to let momentum choose for me. Friends say you think too much, maybe I do, but thinking creates distance, and distance creates perspective. Cause when you're inside the wave, everything feels obvious, but when you step back, you notice how strange the movement looks. Thousands of people moving the same direction without asking why. That's why sometimes I walk the other way, not to prove a point, not to be different, just to see what exists outside the current. And often the answer is interesting, quiet cafes, underrated songs, unnoticed ideas, waiting patiently for someone curious enough to notice. Maybe that's my strange habit, watching the river instead of jumping in immediately in the current past before deciding whether I actually want to swim. And strangely, the small delay makes every choice feel more honest, because curiosity should belong to the person, not the crowd. And sometimes the most interesting path is the one that moves against the current. Yeah. Yeah. People say I contradict myself, and honestly, they're probably right. I pay attention to trends, but I rarely follow them. I notice what everyone likes, but somehow I end up choosing something else. It's not intentional, I'm not trying to be different. The difference just appears like a quiet reflex. Working and planning, you have to watch what people want, what they click, what they buy, what they suddenly care about. Trends are signals, tiny movements that slowly grow into waves. And if you're observing, you see the wave before it rises. That's a skill, understanding where attention goes, but understanding and joining are two different things. Because a moment, something becomes too obvious to share, too agreed upon. Something inside me Step aside, not rejecting, just hesitating like a voice asking a simple question. Is this actually yours or is it just everywhere? That question is uncomfortable because the honest answer isn't always clear. Sometimes we like things because everyone else likes them, and that's human belonging is powerful, but curiosity is quieter. It asks slower questions. Why do I want this? Would I still want it if nobody talked about it? If the answer is still yes, then it's real, then it's real. If the answer changes, then maybe it wasn't mine. That's why I move slowly through trends, watching, observing, letting excitement pass until curiosity returns. Sometimes months later when the noise fades, when the crowd moves somewhere else, suddenly the same thing feels interesting again. Because now it's quiet, now the experience belongs to me, not the timeline. Friends laugh, you're too stubborn, you miss things. Maybe I do, but missing things doesn't scare me. Losing curiosity does, because curiosity is the only thing that keeps life interesting. Without it, you're just reacting, moving wherever the wave goes, and waves are unpredictable. One moment, everyone agrees. The next moment, everyone forgets. But curiosity doesn't disappear, it simply waits. Patient, quiet, until something actually deserves attention. So maybe I am contradictory, a person who studies trends but refuses to chase them, a planner who watches crowds but walks in a slightly different direction. And honestly, that contradiction feels comfortable, because somewhere between observation and independence there's a small space where curiosity still belongs to me. Yeah, running out, running out,
People think curiosity means liking everything, trying everything, following every trend. But that's not curiosity, it's compliance. Curiosity is selective, it asks questions, it waits, it observes before deciding. And sometimes the answer is no, not aggressively, not dramatically, just quietly. Not everyone else move forward excited, phones out, photos ready, a new place, a new dish, a new trend. And the moment it becomes obvious, but my curiosity shrinks, not because it's bad, but because the experience already belongs to the crowd. Discovery disappears, and discovery is the only part I really enjoy. There's something magical about finding something before the world starts talking about it. A cafe with 3 people inside, a song with barely any streams, a book nobody recommended. Those moments feel personal, like a small conversation between you and the thing you discovered. But the moment it becomes a headline, the conversation changes. Now it's loud, now it's crowded, now everyone says you are to try this, and suddenly the mind is fine. Working in planning makes this even stranger, because my job depends on trends. I have to notice them, track them, understand them, predict where attention will move next. The irony is that the better I understand trends, the less I want to follow them, because once you see the pattern, the illusion disappears. You realize how quickly people move together, how easily attention shifts, how predictable excitement becomes. One influencer posts, another follows. Soon everyone agrees and a wave grows. But curiosity doesn't like waves, it prefers quiet water, space, time, distance, to ask a simple question. Do I actually want this, or do I just want to belong? The question creates freedom. Freedom to say maybe later or maybe never. Friends laugh sometimes, you're too stubborn, you miss good things. Maybe I do, but missing things doesn't scare me. Following everything does, because when you trend, you start retrend. You stop asking what you actually like, you begin performing taste instead of discovering it, and that performance feels exhausting. So I keep my distance, not from trends, but from urgency. I watch, I learn, I wait. Sometimes curiosity return months later when the crowd has moved on. Now the experience is quiet again. Now it feels like discovery. That moment is worth waiting for. Curiosity should belong to the person, not the timeline, not the algorithm. Just a quiet decision to explore something because it genuinely interests you, and strangely, that simple freedom feels rebellious in a world that constantly asks what's trending instead of what do you actually like.
Every year has its own calendar, not the one hanging on the wall. The other one, the invisible one, the trend calendar. January, a new obsession appears. February, everyone suddenly agrees. March, it's everywhere. April, it becomes normal. May, someone else replaces it. The cycle continues, predictable, almost mechanical. And somehow, I'm always a few months late. Not because I didn't see it coming. Usually I notice early, working and planning trains your eyes. You see pattern, signals, small shifts before they grow. You notice the first article, the first influencer, the first wave of attention. But noticing doesn't mean participating. That's when things get complicated, because when the trend finally becomes visible, when the crowd arrives, when everyone says you have to try this, something inside me presses pause. Maybe it's stubbornness, maybe curiosity, maybe both. But the louder the excitement becomes, the less interested I feel. It's not rejection, it's distance. Like watching fireworks from across the river, you still see the light, still hear the sound, but you're not inside the crowd. And strangely, that distance feels comfortable, because curiosity works better without pressure. Trends move fast, too fast for real, and understanding people follow because others follow, not because they actually ask. Do I like this? That question is quieter. It requires space, and space rarely exists inside a crowd. So I wait weeks, sometimes months, until the noise fades, until the excitement becomes quieter, until the line in front of the cafe disappears, and curiosity returns. Now the experience belongs to me, not the algorithm, not the timeline, just my own interest. Friends say, you're strange, why didn't you just try it earlier? Maybe they're right, maybe I complicate simple things, but something about that delay feels important, because trends are about timing, and curiosity has its own schedule. Not everyone moves at the same speed. Some people arrive early, some people arrive late, some people never arrive, and that's fine, because interest is personal, not mandatory, not scheduled, not assigned. The world moves in waves, popularity rises, popularity fades, and somewhere between those waves, I'm still standing, watching, observing, choosing, not rejecting trends, just refusing to let them choose for me. Maybe that makes me a little contradictory, a person who studies the calendar but refuses to follow every day. That honestly, that freedom feels better than being exactly on time. Every time, every time.
I've always been a little difficult. Not loud about it, but quietly stubborn. The kind of person who notices trends before most people do, yet somehow refuses to follow them. Oh, a strange contradiction, curious about everything, but loyal to almost nothing everyone talks about. What's popular, what's trending, what everyone is buying, eating, watching, wearing. But the moment something becomes too obvious, something inside me steps backward, not out of protest, not even out of pride, just instinct, like a quiet voice whispering. You don't have to go there, I washed away from the shore, while everyone else rushes toward it. A new cafe opens, lines around the corner, photos everywhere, everyone saying this is the place. And suddenly I'm not interested, not because it's bad, but because the excitement feels borrowed, shared enthusiasm that somehow doesn't belong to me. Friends ask, why don't you try it, you probably like it. Maybe I would, but liking it isn't the point. The point is choice, the freedom to decide. Feed on pressure without invisible, but no expectation. Working and planning, you learn something about trends. They move fast, but they're predictable. They follow patterns, human, curiosity mixed with human insecurity. People wanna belong, so they move together. But belonging has never been my goal. Understanding has always been more interesting. Why do people suddenly love something? Why does attention move like weather? Why does the crowd change direction so easily? Those questions fascinate me more than the trend itself. The trend itself. Maybe that's why I feel comfortable standing outside, observing, not judging, just noticing. Because sometimes distance makes things clearer when everyone runs toward the same place. I'm curious about the empty street, the quiet cafe without the line, the song nobody noticed, yet the conversation that happened before the crowds arise. That's where interesting things live. Not always, but often enough to keep me curious. People say you're stubborn, you're strange. Why don't you just enjoy things normally? Maybe they're right. Maybe I am a little difficult, a little contradictory. A person who studies trends but refuses to chase a summer planner, who watches the crowd but walks in a slightly different direction. Sometimes I don't understand it either. Why I resist, why I hesitate, why popularity makes me pause. But the truth is I don't really want to done change, because somewhere inside that contradiction there's freedom, freedom to think, freedom to choose, freedom to stand outside the noise just long enough to hear something. Even if that originality is simply being a little different from everyone else. And strangely, that difference feels honest, more honest than pretend to like something just because everyone else says.
Sometimes I wonder if trends are actually a form of psychology. Not marketing, not culture, just human behavior moving together without realizing it. Someone posts something, a dish, a place, a style. Suddenly the timeline reacts, likes multiply, comments appear, recommendations spread them on dates, some grows. And before anyone really asks why, everyone agrees this matters now. Working and planning, you learn to read those signals, not the trend itself, but the emotion behind it. People don't follow trends because of logic, they follow them because of curiosity and fear. Curiosity says, what does this fear whisper? What if everyone else knows something I don't? That small thought changes behavior. Suddenly you wanna see it, taste it, understand it before the moment passes. Cause the internet moves quickly, you're missing something. Feels like missing the conversation. But curiosity and pressure are not the same. Curiosity is quiet, personal, slow. Pressure is loud, shared, immediate. The difference is easy to forget because timelines blur everything together. One recommendation becomes 100, one opinion becomes becomes consensus. Soon you're not deciding, you're reacting to realization. Change how I watch trends now. I notice the psychology, the excitement, the repetition. The invisible rhythm of attention is fascinating. Like observing a crowd from a balcony, you see patterns, movement, energy. But you're not inside the wave, and that distance creates clarity. Because now you can ask, do I actually want this, or am I just metacity in momentum? Sometimes the answer surprises me. Sometimes the trend really is good. Sometimes curiosity wins. Sometimes the excitement fades. Once the noise disappears, and that's fine, because taste doesn't need to match the timeline. It only needs to be honest. Honest curiosity, honest interest, honest attention. That's all, the rest is just moving. Honest hit, moving through an endless feed of moments people temporarily believe are important until the next signal appears. And attention moves again.
Finally becomes quiet, no trending page, no new recommendations, no sudden waves of intention. Silence, and strange, that silence bring a day. The internet is loud, endless movement, endless excitement. New things appearing every minute, places, songs, ideas, opinions. Everyone reacting, everyone sharing, everyone participating. One builds faster than curiosity. Working and planning, you learn how quick the attention moves. The algorithm notices what people react to, then it amplifies the signal. Soon the timeline looks like agreement. Thousands of people seeing the same thing at the same moment, believing this must matter right now.
But the strange part about algorithms is how temporary their attention is. What feels essential today becomes invisible tomorrow. The conversation shifts as the crowd moves, another trend appears, and suddenly the thing everyone loves feels ordinary. That moment is fascinating because it reveals how fragile attention can be. Popularity is often just timing the right signal at the right moment in the right feed. But curiosity is different. Curiosity doesn't disappear when the algorithm moves on. It stays, it returns quietly late at night when the noise is gone. That's when you notice what actually interested you.
Now what the timeline suggested, now what everyone recommended, just what caught your attention. Personally, those moments feel different, more real, more honest, because the choice was yours, not the feeds, not the crowds. Just curiosity responding to something that still matters, without the noise, without the pressure, without the invisible rule that says you should care right now. That's why I like the quiet hours after the algorithm stops talking, because in that silence, curiosity finally gets the microphone, and the question becomes simple. Not what is trending, not what is popular, just what actually feels interesting enough to keep listening, even no one else is watching. And the answer to that question is usually the only thing worth keeping after the algorithm falls asleep. can be borrowed. That's something the internet taught me. You see something, someone else is excited. Another person repeats it. Soon everyone sounds equally convinced that this moment matters. Working and planning, you learn how easily attention spreads. Not because something is always extraordinary, but because human curiosity is social. We watch each other for signals, for direction, for confirmation. One person cares, two people care. Suddenly it feels natural to care too. That's how momentum begins. Quietly, then rapidly, the timeline fills. Recommendations, photos, opinions, videos. Everyone sharing the same discovery. Except it's no longer a discovery, it's repetition. The excitement multiplied across thousands of screens. And that repetition feels convincing because agreement feels safe if everyone likes it. It must be good if everyone cares. It must matter. But sometimes that excitement person laughs, another follows soon. The entire room is laughing, even if no one remembers what started it. The internet works the same way. Attention echoes across timelines until it sounds like certainty, but certainty is different from curiosity. Curiosity doesn't need an audience, it simply appears quietly. Something catches your attention, not because everyone says it's important, but because something about it feels interesting. The difference is subtle but meaningful. Borrowed excitement arrives quickly. Real curiosity takes time. Borrowed excitement needs agreement. Real curiosity needs attention. Whoa, yeah. But sometimes that excitement is borrowed. Not dishonest, not fake, just contagious like laughter. One person laughs, another follows. Soon the entire room is laughing, even if no one remembers what started it. Internet works the same way. Attention echoes across timelines until it sounds like certainty, but differently is different from curiosity. Curiosity doesn't need an audience, it simply appears quietly. Something catches your attention, but because something about it feels interesting. That difference is subtle but meaningful. Borrowed excitement arrives quickly. Real curiosity takes time. Borrowed excitement needs agreement. Real curiosity needs attention. Borrowed excitement, but sometimes that excitement is fly, always moving, but curiosity still whispers underneath, waiting for someone patient enough to hear it. Sometimes trends look like we're mirages. From a distance they shine bright. They say it seems impossible to ignore. Everyone runs toward them, certain that something important is waiting there, working and planning. You see the moment when it begins, the first signal, a small post, a recommendation, a sudden curiosity, then a repetition starts. Someone shares it, another repeats it. Soon the entire timeline is reflecting the same excitement. Momentum grows faster than logic, faster than understanding, because attention moves emotionally, not rationally. People feel the urgency, the excitement, the sense that something is happening right now. And suddenly everyone wants to be there, but distance changes perspective when you
Step back, the scene looks different. The trend looks less like a destination and more like a reflection, a moment created by attention, not always by meaning. That realization is strange because excitement feels authentic. People really are curious, really interested, really engaged. But sometimes the interest is borrowed, not invented. Borrow from repetition, borrow from momentum, borrow from the feeling that everyone else already cares. That's why I like watching trends from a distance, not rejecting them, not judging them, just observing how attention moves. Because trends are fascinating, they reveal human behavior, curiosity, insecurity, excitement, all moving together like light across water. But curiosity feels different when it's real. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic, it doesn't demand immediate reaction. It simply appears, something catches your attention quietly, unexpectedly, and suddenly you care. Not because everyone else does, but because something inside feels interested. That difference is subtle but powerful. Because trends often disappear as quickly as they arrive. Attention shifts, moment fades, the crowd moves, and the shining moment becomes ordinary. But real curiosity doesn't vanish, it stays. It returns weeks later, months later, long after the excitement ended. That's when you discover whether something was a mirage or something worth keeping. Cause distance reveals clarity, and clarity turns attention into invitation. New mirages, new reflections, new mirages, new excitement, new momentum. But curiosity doesn't chase reflections, it waits until something actually deserves your attention. And when that moment arrives, you know the difference between a mirage and meaning.
Curiosity doesn't always arrive on time. Sometimes it shows up late after the crowd, after the conversation, after the excitement has already passed. And strangely, that delay feels comfortable because curiosity doesn't like pressure. The internet moves fast every hour. Something new appears, a place, a trend, a headline, a song, a conversation. Suddenly everyone reacts, phones out, opinions ready, participation begins. Because the moment feels urgent, like something important is happening right now. Working and planning, you learn that urgency is often artificial, not fake, but amplified. Momentum grows because attention moves together. One person cares, another repeats soon. Everyone believes they should care too, and curiosity gets confused. Because curiosity was never meant to move that quickly. Real curiosity wants time and wants space to ask why something feels interesting. Without pressure, without repetition, without the invisible rule that says you should try this immediately. That's why sometimes I wait, not rejecting trends, not ignoring them, just letting the noise pass. Cause after the wave, something interesting happens. Silence returns, the timeline moves forward, the crowd finds another topic, and suddenly the same thing looks different now. The experience is quiet, no pressure, no expectations, just curiosity. Finally able to ask, do I actually want this? Sometimes the answer is yes, and the experience is honest. Sometimes the answer is no, and that honesty feels even better. Because taste should never be risk taken.
taste grows through curiosity, through exploration, through quiet attention, not urgency, not momentum, not the algorithm, just personal interest, arrive align its own speed. That's why I don't mind being late to excitement, because curiosity has its own schedule. And sometimes the most interesting discoveries happen after everyone else has already left, when the noise is gone and the moment finally belongs to you instead of the crowd. Delayed curiosity, but honest curiosity always arrives when the sad is ready. When it's ready.
Yeah. The internet is full of static, not silence, not clarity, static. Thousands of voices speaking, posting, repeating, reacting. At the same time, a constant hum of attention, working and planning. You learn to hear it, the difference between noise and signal. Because somewhere inside the static, something real occasionally appears, but finding it is harder than people think. Every day the timeline fills with new excitement, new places, new ideas, new opinions. Everyone's saying this matters. Like, no, look here, try this, understand this. But when everything demands attention, attention becomes blurry. That's when curiosity struggles, because curiosity needs space. It needs silence, enough quiet to ask. Instead of simply reacting but static, never stops, it keeps repeating the same signals until repetition feels like truth. One recommendation becomes 10, becomes thousands. Soon the entire feed is echoing the same excitement, and suddenly it feels impossible to ignore. That's how momentum works. It doesn't ask for permission, it simply grows. With growth doesn't know it mean meaty. That's the difference between signal and static. Signal carries information, static carries repetition. Signal invites curiosity, static demands reaction. Standing outside the noise, you begin to notice which one you're hearing, cause real interest feels different. It doesn't shout, it doesn't rush, it simply appears quietly. Something catches your attention, a small detail, a tone, an idea, and curiosity begins naturally, without pressure, without urgency, without the feeling that everyone else is watching. Those moments are rare, but meaningful, because they belong to you, not the algorithm. That's the trend, it's your curiosity responding to something real. That's why I move slowly through the noise, listening carefully for signals hidden inside the static, because the internet will always be loud, always moving, always repeating. But curiosity doesn't need the entire timeline to agree. They only need one clear signal, strong enough to cut through the noise. And once you hear it, a static suddenly feels much quieter, because now you know what actually deserves your attention. The internet is full of static. The internet is full of static. The internet is full of static. The internet. The internet is full of static. 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 It's full of static. It's full of static. Full of static. Full of static. Full of static. The internet is full of static. The internet. The internet is full of static. The internet is full of static. The internet is The internet is full of static. The internet is full of static. The internet is full of static. The internet is
There's a difference between noise and curiosity. The internet confuses them every day. Noise appears first, a post, a short video, a recommendation, yeah, something small, suddenly repeating again and again and again, until the repetition becomes momentum. Working and planning, you learn something strange. Attention doesn't grow because something is necessarily great. Sometimes attention grows because repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates agreement. The more people see something, the more normal it feels. The more normal it feels, the easier it becomes to believe. Everyone cares, but noise and curiosity are different forces. Noise, it moves quickly, loud, excited, demanding attention. Curiosity moves slowly, quiet, patient, asking questions. The problem is that noise often arrives first. Someone says you have to try this, you have to see this, you have to know this, and suddenly everyone reacts. Phones out, photos take, opinions ready, because participation feels important, like standing inside the moment. But sometimes standing outside reveals something interesting. When the noise fades, when the excitement moves somewhere else, curiosity finally speaks. Now the question appears, did I actually want this, or did I simply hear it too many times? That realization is uncomfortable because it reveals how easily attention can be borrowed. Borrowed that excitement, borrowed opinions, borrowed curiosity, yeah. But real curiosity feels different. It arrives quietly, without pressure, without urgency, without the feeling that you must care immediately. You simply notice something interesting, a place, a song, a conversation, and curiosity begins naturally. Not because everyone is watching, but because something feels meaningful. That's the difference. Noise wants immediate reaction. Curiosity invites separation. Noise says, look now. Curiosity says, look closer. Noise demands agreement. Curiosity encourages questions, working and planning. I watch both the noise and the curiosity, because understanding trends requires understanding human attention. But personally I trust curiosity more, because noise disappears quickly. The timeline moves, the conversation shifts, the excitement fades, but curiosity stays longer. It returns weeks later, months later, when the noise is gone. Now the experience belongs to you, not the crowd, not the algorithm. Just curiosity, finally speaking without interruption. That's when the taste becomes real, not when everyone agrees, but when the noise stops and the curiosity remains quiet, patient, still asking whether something actually deserves your attention. Your attention. the internet feels like weather, not technology, not information, not an information weather. Clouds of opinions, winds of excitement, sudden storms of attention. One moment, the sky is empty, the next everyone is talking about the same thing. The same restaurant, the same the same trend, the same conversation. And the strange part is how fast it spreads. Not gradually, not carefully, but instantly. Like lightning, someone posts, another person repeats it. Soon to the entire time. These echo waves in the entire time. These echo waves in the entire time. These echo waves in the entire time. The same excitement, working and planning, you'll begin to notice how predictable that weather becomes. Attention follows patterns, small signals becoming louder. A mention, a repost, a recommendation, a short video, then suddenly the clouds gather and the storm begins. People rushing to participate, trying to think, visiting the place, buying the product, posting the proof, because participation feels important, like being present in the moment. But sometimes I stand outside that storm, watching and the scene looks fascinating. Thousands of people moving together, reacting to the same signal. Look like birds changing direction in perfect formation. The strange part is that everyone believes they arrived individually, that their curiosity was personal. But sometimes the momentum arrived first, and curiosity followed. That difference is easy to miss, because excitement feels authentic, but excitement can be contagious, just like weather. One person feels it, then another. Soon the entire atmosphere changes. That's why I've learned to slow down, not to reject trends, not to avoid them, but to understand where am I to avoid them. Actually begins because there's a moment after the storm when everything becomes quiet again. The sky clears, the timeline moves on. People forget what felt essential yesterday, and suddenly you're standing in the calm, looking at the same thing without the thunder, without the noise. Now you can finally ask, do I actually like it? Without the storm, without the echo, without the invisible rule that says you should care right now. Sometimes the answer is yes, and the experience feels genuine. Other times the answer is silence, and that silence it feels honest, because taste doesn't belong to weather, it belongs to curiosity. Curiosity means cheerfully. It doesn't rush, it doesn't panic, it doesn't follow clouds. It waits until the sky becomes clear, and then it decides quietly what actually deserves attention. So while the internet continues forecasting the next storm, the next excitement, the next sudden obsession, I'm still watching the clouds, trying to understand how attention changes the atmosphere of culture without forgetting, without trying to settle it. It's quieter than thunder, but far more on it. And it's in your shy, more call that settle. Yeah. Every timeline has a rhythm, not music but attention. A pulse, invisible but predictable. Something appears quietly, one person notices, another shares. Soon the entire feed moves like dancers following the same beat, scrolling, commenting, reposting the same excitement, repeated hundreds, thousands, millions of times. Working and planning, you begin to see the choreography, the small signals that start everything. A mention, a photo, a recommendation, tiny sparks becoming waves, bumps hit them bills, and suddenly everyone seems perfect perfectly synchronized. But synchronization is strange, because most people don't even realize they're dancing. They think they're deciding individually, but the rhythm is already there. The algorithm setting the tempo. Curiosity becomes momentum becomes agreement. Agreement becomes popularity, and popularity feels like true, but sometimes truth is quieter. Standing outside the dance floor watching, you notice how quickly attention moves. One day everyone talks about the same place, the same song, the same idea. The next week, silence. The crowd has moved somewhere else. And the thing that felt essential yesterday now feels ordinary. That moment is fascinating, because it reveals the difference between interest and movement. Movement is collective, interest is personal. When the rhythm stops, the real question appears. Did I actually like this, or did I simply follow the beat? That question is uncomfortable, because the answer isn't always flattering. Sometimes we move because everyone else moves, not because we truly wanted to. But curiosity is patient. It waits until the dance floor empties, until the music becomes quiet. Now you can hear your own reaction, without the rhythm, without the pressure, just the experience. Sometimes it is still instant interesting, sometimes it isn't. Both answers are honest, because taste doesn't need to match the algorithm's tempo. It only needs to match your curiosity. So while the timeline continues dancing from trend to trend, I'm still standing, watching, learning, trying to understand the rhythm of attention, without forgetting to listen to my own. Morning feels different when the noise disappears. Yesterday everyone was talking, same places, same flavors, same headlines, same excitement, entire timeline moving together like a synchronized dance. Phones lighting up, opinions stacking, recommendations multiplying, momentum growing, and somewhere inside that noise I was watching, trying to understand why attention moves like weather. Why something small suddenly becomes everything, working and planning. You see these patterns before they fully arrive. A post, a mention, a subtle shift, suddenly away from the strange thing. Always is what happens after morning arrives, and everything becomes quieter. That excitement slows down, the crowd moves somewhere else. The timeline finds another topic, and suddenly the thing everyone loved yesterday feels normal again. That moment is interesting, because now you can finally ask, did I actually care about it, or was I just watching the crowd? Attention is contagious. One person cares and another soon everyone believes they care too. But curiosity doesn't always move with attention. Sometimes it waits until the moment becomes quiet, until the excitement is gone, until the crowd stops shouting. Now you can finally hear your own reaction, not the algorithm, not the conversation, just your own curiosity. That's when the real question appears. Do I like this? Without the hype, without the pressure, without the invisible rule that said you should like this right now. Sometimes the answer is yes, sometimes it's no. Both are honest, both are valid, because taste doesn't belong to trends, it belongs to curiosity. And curiosity simply waits until something actually deserves your attention. Morning after the trend, everything feels clear. The noise is gone, the excitement faded, and what remains a simple question. What do I actually like without the crowd, without the way, without the algorithm? Just me standing quietly in front of something, deciding whether it truly belongs.
I have a theory, based not a scientific one. Not something you can prove, just something I notice. Watching people, watching trends, watching attention move like a crowd. All in the same street at the same time. Everyone says they choose what they like, but sometimes it feels like liking is contagious. Someone discovers something interesting, another person agrees. So the entire time I feels excited about the same thing, and suddenly it feels natural to join. Not because you decided, but because agreement feels comfortable. Working and planning, you see how quickly comfort spreads. A recommendation becomes momentum, momentum becomes popularity, popularity becomes culture. But curiosity is stranger than that. Curiosity doesn't always move with the crowd. Sometimes it moves sideways, crooked, unexpected. You discover a random song at 2 in the morning. Nobody recommended it, nobody talked about it, but something about the sound feels interesting. You listen again and again. Suddenly it becomes part of your world. That moment is powerful because it belongs only to you. Not the algorithm, not the trend, just curiosity runs something unexpected. That's why I like crooked taste, the kind that doesn't follow straight lines, the kind that notices things before or after the crowd. Because popularity moves in waves, but curiosity moves like a wandering path. Sometimes you arrive early, sometimes you arrive late, sometimes you never arrive at all. And that's fine because taste isn't supposed to be synchronized, it's supposed to be personal. Friends sometimes ask, why do you like that? Why not like this? Everyone else does, but back question, this is the point. Taste is not a vote, it's a discovery, a quiet moment when something feels interesting without explanation, without permission, without agreement, just curiosity responding to something real. Indeed, that's my strange habit, walking sideways while the crowd walks forward, not trying to be different, just following where curiosity decides to go. Because sometimes the most interesting things exist just outside the obvious paths, waiting for someone curious enough to notice that crooked is sometimes more interesting than straight, than straight, than straight, than straight. I have a theory about taste, not a scientific one, not something you can prove, just something I noticed. Watching people, watching trends, watching attention move like a crowd, passing the same street at the same time. Everyone says they choose what they like, but sometimes it feels like liking is contagious. Someone discovers something interesting, another person agrees. Soon the entire timeline feels excited about the same thing, and suddenly it feels natural to join. Not because you decided, but because agreement feels natural to join. Not because you decided. I have a theory. 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 I have a theory.
I have a theory.
I have a theory. I have a theory. I have a theory. I have a theory. I have a theory. I have a theory.
have a theory. I have a theory. I have a theory.
I think there's something strange about the way I think. Not dramatic, strange, just slightly misaligned, like standing half a step to the left while everyone else stands in the center, watching the same thing at the same time. The internet loves synchronization. People discovering the same trend, eating the same food, buying the same jacket, listening to the same song, and somehow it feels comforting to move together like the world has a shared rhythm. But inside my head there's always another voice, a quiet one, asking, do you actually like this, or do you just recognize it? That question changes everything, because recognition is easy. The algorithm shows it to you, your friends talk about it, your feed repeats it. Soon you feel familiar with something, even before you try it. But for familiar, this is not the same. Easy before you try it, but familiarity is not the same as interest. To rise slowly without restraint, without the feeling, without authenticity, without the feeling that you should care immediately. It simply appears, a small curiosity, something catches your attention and suddenly you wanna know more. Not because everyone else does, but because on about every person that difference is subtle but important. Because the world moves first, trends appear, explode, then disappear. Almost overnight, working and planning, you learn to watch those cycles. Curiosity doesn't follow that rhythm. Curiosity is waits for the moment when the noise fades, when the excitement becomes quiet, when the timeline finds another topic. That's when things become interesting, because now you can finally ask, what do I actually like? You can finally ask, what do I actually like? Without the echo, without the pressure, without the invisible rule that says you should care right now. Sometimes the answer is unexpected, something everyone loves feels empty, something nobody noticed feels fascinating, moment feels honest, because the choice belongs to you. Not with algorithm, not the crowd, just curiosity. Responding to something real. People sometimes ask, why are you like this? Why not just enjoy things normally? Maybe they're right, maybe my curiosity moves strangely. Maybe I hesitate too often, but the truth is I don't mind being a little different, because inside that difference is freedom.
attention moves. But curiosity shows you where you actually belong. So why the world keeps chasing the next moment, the next trend, the next excitement, I'm still listening to that quiet voice inside my head, the one that says take your time, look closer and decide what actually feels like yours.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Rebellion. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Rebellion usually looks out grotesque arguments, declarations, people raising voices, refusing, rejecting, fighting. But I've started to believe there's another kind of rebellion, a quiet one, working your plate, and you see how easily people move together. The same trends, the same places, the same conversations, the timeline to suggest what matters. Suddenly, everyone agrees, not because they plan to, but because agreement feels comfortable. Participation feels natural when something becomes popular. The easiest reaction is to follow, not blindly, just naturally. Humans like belonging, but curiosity has a strange habit. Sometimes it hesitates, it pauses, it asks questions while everyone else moves forward in the hesitation. Look strange, why didn't you try that place? Why didn't you watch that show? Why don't you care? Everyone else does. I will eventually, just not immediately, because curiosity moves different. It doesn't respond to pressure or urgency. It responds to interest. That difference is small but powerful, because the moment you stop reacting automatically, something interesting happens. You start choosing, not rejecting trends, not resisting, just choosing carefully. And that choice feels like a quiet rebellion, not against people, not against culture, just against automatic agreement. The internet, reward speed, fast reactions, fast opinions, fast excitement. But curiosity is one space to explore, to observe, to think, and sometimes that patience leads somewhere unexpected. You discover something small, a song, a place, an IP that nobody recommended, but something about it feels right, not trendy, not viral, just meaningful. And suddenly you realize taste isn't built from popularity, it's built from curiosity. Those quiet discoveries stacked together one by one until eventually they form something personal. Your interest, your perspective, you're a strange collection of things that matter, not because everyone agrees, but because you will listen to curiosity instead of momentum. Maybe that's the quiet rebellion. I believe in not shouting, not rejecting, just noticing, choosing, exploring, while the timeline moves loudly somewhere else. Because sometimes the most interesting life is built from the moments where curiosity quietly changes direction, and you follow without asking whether the crowd is coming too quiet. Rebellion, not against the world, just against living automatically. And strangely, that small rebellion feels like freedom, 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 freedom.
loves trends. The bigger, the better, the louder, the better. If everyone is talking, then it must matter. At least that's what the timeline suggests. Every scroll reveals the same idea. This is important, this is exciting, this is the moment. But I've started to notice something. Curiosity almost never trends. Working and planning, you see how attention spreads. A signal appears, people react, more people repeat it. Soon the entire feed looks synchronized, like the world has suddenly agreed about something. But agreement isn't always curiosity. Something that comes, the easier it is to notice, and noticing feels like interest, even when it isn't. That's why curiosity moves differently. It doesn't ride with momentum and quietly, unexpectedly, you discover something random. A song with almost no plays, a small place, nobody photographed an idea, no one explained. And somehow, something about it feels interesting. You listen again, look again, think again. Suddenly curiosity grows, not because everyone agrees, but because something feels real. That moment is invisible to the timeline. No viral post, no trending topic, no algorithm. Just curiosity expanding inside your attention. And strangely, those moments often matter more because they belong to you. Curiosity grows not because everyone agrees, but because something feels real. That moment is invisible to the timeline. No viral post, no trending topic, no algorithm. Just curiosity expanding inside your attention. And strangely, those moments often matter more because they belong to you. Another crowd, another single curiosity responding to something ingenuine. Maybe that's a strange truth about taste. Popularity shows what people notice. Curiosity reveals what people love, and love rarely trends. Love arrives slowly, it repeats quietly, it returns long after the timeline moves on. A trend can disappear in a week. Curiosity can stay for years. That's why I don't worry about missing trends. Not every signal deserves attention. Not every moment needs participation. Sometimes the most interesting discoveries happen after the excitement is gone. When the noise fades, when the timeline becomes quiet, and curiosity finally has space to speak, because trends are loud. Here to be gone. Here is patient, and patience often leads to the things that actually stay with you long after the trend has disappeared. Curiosity doesn't trend, but it lasts. Yeah.
People say life don't, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't. Some people, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't. People say life don't, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't. People, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't. People say,
Yeah.
life needs direction, a clear path, a straight line, something logical, something predictable, something that makes sense and maybe they're right. Straight lines are easier, they look organized, they look responsible, they look safe, but curiosity rarely moves in straight lines. It wanders, it hesitates, it changes direction, working and planning. You see how predictable trends can be. Attention move from one moment to another. Restaurants, songs, places, ideas, everything rises, explodes and disappears. The pattern repeats again and again and again.
It's almost mechanical momentum, signal repetition, populate. But curiosity, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't. We fear rise, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't, but I don't. But curiosity doesn't follow that rhythm. Curiosity is messy. You discover something strange late at night. A song nobody mentioned, a conversation nobody recorded, a random idea that suddenly feels interesting, and somehow that moment changes your direction. Not dramatically, just slightly like a compass turning 1 small degree, but the small turn leads somewhere different. Months later you notice your taste has shifted, your interests have expanded, your curiosity has quietly redrawn the map. That's why I don't mind walking offbeat while the crowd walks straight. Not because I wanna be different, but because curiosity keeps pointing somewhere unexpected. Friends sometimes ask, why didn't you try that place? Everyone went, why didn't you watch that show? Everyone loved it, maybe I will eventually. The curiosity, it would up what I do, it would do, it would up what I 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 do. People take a step forward, it would up what I do, it would up what I do, it would do, it would up what I 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 do. Doesn't like schedules, it doesn't like deadlines, it prefers accidents, unexpected turns, moments where something quietly grabs your attention, and suddenly you're exploring with a plan and without permission, without agreement, just curiosity following its own compass. Maybe that's what makes this interesting. Not the things everyone shares, but the things you discover while walking a slightly different direction. Because popularity shows where the crowd is moving, but curiosity reveals where your path actually begins. And sometimes the most interesting places only appear after you leave the obvious road and let your curiosity what up and act on, up and on, but up and act 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 on, says act on, but up and act on, but up and act on, but on, but up and act 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 on. Guide the compass somewhere unexpected, somewhere personal, somewhere that feels like yours. Every person has a frequency, not the kind measured by machines, the kind measured by curiosity. The things you notice before anyone points them out, the sounds that feel interesting before they become popular, the ideas that stay inside your mind longer than they should. Working and planning, you watch how attention spreads across the internet. It moves like a signal, a loud one, easy to detect, easy to repeat. A post appears, someone reacts, another person shares it soon. Thousands of screens are broadcasting the same excitement. That signal feels powerful because it's visible, because it's loud, because agreement looks impressive. But curiosity rarely broadcasts that loudly. Curiosity whispers, it speaks on quieter frequencies, the kind you only hear when you slow down. That's why sometimes the things everyone loves feel distant, not wrong, not bad, just slightly out of tune with your attention. And then unexpectedly something strange appears, a song nobody recommended, a thought nobody discussed, a place nobody photographed, but something about it feels perfect, aligned with your curiosity, like discovering a hidden frequency. That moment feels powerful because it belongs to you. Not the algorithm, not the trend, just your attention responding.
personal. Unpredictable, sometimes strange, but always honest. That's why I don't mind standing slightly outside the signal, listening carefully for something different, because somewhere between the noise and the silence, curiosity is always broadcasting on a quieter channel, waiting for someone patient enough to tune in. And when you hear it, the world suddenly sounds a little more interesting. Every timeline has trends, visible ones, the kind everyone talks about. Restaurants, close the songs, ideas. You open the feed and the same thing appears again and again and again until it feels impossible to ignore. But I realize there's another kind of trend, one that never appears on the timeline. Private trends, the quiet things people discover by accident. Working and planning, you see how public attention moves. It follows patterns, signals, ramps on one post becomes 10, 10 become thousands. Soon the algorithm pushes it everywhere. The same place, the same drink, the same opinion. Suddenly everyone feels synchronized, but synchronization is misleading, because behind every screen something quieter is happening. Someone listens to a song nobody recommended, someone reads a book nobody mentioned, nobody named, someone visits a place nobody photographed. Those moments never trend, they simply happen inside private curiosity. And sometimes those discoveries matter more because they belong to you, not the crowd, not the algorithm, just your attention. I think that's the strange paradox of the internet. It shows you what everyone notices, but it hides what people actually love, because love doesn't need visibility. It grows in quiet spaces late at night, inside headphones, inside conversations, inside curiosity that nobody posts. Sometimes I notice something interesting, a song, a voice, a strange idea, and I hesitate to share. Not because I wanna hide it, not because part of the magic is that it feels personal, like a small secret between you and curiosity. Public trends move fast, they rise, they explode, they disappear, but private trends move differently. They stay months, years, sometimes they quietly become part of your identity. The music you always return to, the places you always revisit, the ideas that change how you think, those things never needed the timeline's approval, they only need your attention. Maybe that's why I'm comfortable standing outside the wave, watching, observing, not rejecting trends, just remembering that the most interesting discoveries rarely happen at the same moment as everyone else. They happen when curiosity moves alone in quiet directions, following signals nobody else even notices. Somehow those private trends become the ones that last the longest.
Sometimes, late at night, I stop thinking about taste. Not music taste, not food, not fashion, but the deeper kind, the invisible taste that decides what we actually care about, because the internet tends that taste is obvious. You open the feed and the algorithm shows you what everyone loves, what everyone shares, what everyone is talking about, and it feels like the world has already decided what matters, but that decision is rarely personal. It's momentum working and planning. You see it clearly. The algorithm doesn't create curiosity, it amplifies signals. A post gets attention, the system notices, more people see it, more reactions appear. Suddenly the timeline feels unanimous, but underneath it is an illusion, because attention is louder than curiosity. Is immediate. Curiosity is paint shot. Is immediate. Is paint shot. Is immediate. Attention, move fast. Curiosity, wonder city, wonder tension. Loves repetition, curiosity loves discovery. That's why sometimes the things everyone agrees on feel less interesting, because agreement arrived first and curiosity never had time to ask questions. That's when just the relation is every interest. Every interest. Recognition belongs to attention. It belongs to attention, real attention, not the scrolling kind of quiet kinda makes you listen again, think again, explore further. That's the difference between trends and taste trends. Tell you what people notice, taste reveals what people love, and love is rarely synchronized. It grows quietly, unexpectedly. Sometimes is immediate. In space for Earth is a medium. Is a medium. Sometimes from strange places, a random song, a forgotten idea, a conversation that nobody recorded but somehow stayed with you long after the timeline moved on. That's the kind of curiosity I trust, not the loud one, not the viral one, the quiet one, the one that doesn't need it with more momentum or validation, just interest appearing inside your mind without an explanation. Maybe that's my strange philosophy about taste, not following, not rejecting, just listening carefully until curiosity actually speaks. Cause once you hear that voice, the algorithm runs sounding much quieter, and suddenly the timeline stops deciding what matters. You doing strictly that small freedom feels better than pop. You yeah. Popularity usually moves in straight lines, everyone walking in the same direction, talking about the same thing, eating the same place, listening to the same song, scrolling post, reposting, and somehow it feels normal, like the entire world is sharing the same curiosity. But I've noticed something strange. Sometimes the most interesting things up here sideways, not in front, not where everyone is looking, but slightly to the left of attention, working and planning. You see how trends grow. First, a small spark, a mention, a video, a recommendation and repetition, more people talking, more people reacting. Soon everyone believes this moment matters right now. Momentum grows, predictable, almost mechanical, but curiosity is rarely mechanical. Curiosity is messy, they wonder, they hesitate, it looks sideways, while the crowd looks forward, and sometimes that sideways glance reveals something more interesting than the trend itself. A quiet cafe, no line, no photos, just a place waiting patiently, a song with almost no streams, but something about the sound feels alive. A conversation nobody recorded, but somehow more memorable than the loud ones. Those moments rarely become trends, because trends prefer visibility, predictability, momentum, but curiosity likes accidents, unexpected discoveries. Things you find not because everyone recommended them, but because something caught your attention quietly. That's why sometimes I move differently, not against the trend, not rejecting it, just walking a slightly different path. Friends notice, why didn't you try that? Everyone did, maybe I will eventually, just not at the same time, because curiosity works better without urgency, without pressure, without the feeling that everyone is watching. Taste grow when attention is honest, not when it's synchronized. Popularity is visible, curiosity is invisible, but invisible things often last longer because they belong to people, not an algorithm, not timelines, just individuals choosing what actually feels interesting. Maybe that's why sideways popularity fascinates me. The things almost trending, but not quite. The ideas floating just outside the spotlight. The sound for places, the conversations waiting patiently for someone curious enough to notice it. Cause when the crowd moves forward, there's always something interesting. Just a few steps to the side, quiet, unnoticed, still waiting for curiosity to arrive. Popularity usually moves in straight lines, everyone walking in the same direction, talking about the same thing, eating the same place, listening to the same song, scrolling about saying, repeating, and somehow it feels normal. Usually moves in straight line, everyone walking in the same direction. Popularity Usually moves in straight lines. Usually moves in straight lines. Popularity usually moves in straight lines. Popularity usually moves in straight lines. Usually moves in straight lines. Usually moves in straight. Popularity usually moves in straight lines. Usually moves. Usually moves in straight line. Usually moves in straight lines. Usually moves. Usually moves in straight lines. Usually moves straight lines.
Sometimes I think everyone secretly belongs to a strange taste club. Not officially, not publicly, but quietly inside their headphones, inside their late night playlist, inside the things but never explain, because taste is personal. Even when the internet pretends it isn't. Every day the timeline tells you what everyone loves, what everyone eats, what everyone watches, what everyone buys. The crowd moves in visible directions like a giant arrow pointing toward popularity, and it's easy to believe that everyone actually agrees, but that's the illusion of attention, not the reality of taste. Because behind every screen someone is listening to something different. Someone is watching something strange. Someone is fascinated by something nobody else noticed. Curiosity is much weirder than the internet admits. The algorithm loves patterns, but people love exception. Working in planning, you begin to notice the difference between visible trends and invisible curiosity. Trends are loud, obvious, predictable, but curiosity is hidden, quiet, personal. Someone discovers a song at 3 in the morning and plays it 10 times in a row. No post, no comment, no announcement, just interest. That moment is invisible to the timeline, but it's real. That's how taste actually grows, not through agreement, but through expiration. Someone finds something strange, interesting, different, and suddenly it becomes part of their world. Not because everyone else cares, but because curiosity made space for it. If you learn, it makes it easy to believe everyone likes the same things, because the louder signals repeat the most. But reality is much messier, much more interesting, because every person is building their own strange taste club inside their mind. A collection of sounds, ideas, places, conversations that feel meaningful, even if nobody else understands. And maybe that's the best part about curiosity. It doesn't require approval, it doesn't need agreement. It simply asks, what do you actually like? Not what should you like, not what everyone likes, just you. That question feels simple, but it's powerful, because the moment you answer honestly, your taste stops belonging to the timeline and starts belonging to curiosity. Maybe that's why I feel comfortable standing outside the trend, watching, observing, choosing slowly, because somewhere in that quiet space, curiosity, but something more interesting than popularity. A strange taste club with no rules, no membership, no agreement, just people listening to the things that feel like they're